It's Victoria's Collection here. Please like, share, and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Let's get into the video.
Across America, a familiar sight is returning empty store shelves. Supermarkets, department stores, and online retailers are grappling with dwindling inventories. This is not a flashback to the early days of the pandemic. This is the new reality of May 2025, and it's hitting consumers right in the wallet. Prices are soaring as supply chains buckle under the weight of new tariffs and geopolitical tensions. From everyday essentials to big-ticket items, the cost of living is climbing rapidly. The American consumer is facing a perfect storm of economic uncertainty. The situation is particularly dire for low-income families who are already struggling to make ends meet. The rising cost of food, gas, and housing is pushing many to the brink. The economic anxiety is palpable. Consumers are worried about their jobs, their savings, and their ability to provide for their families. The May 2025 crisis is a stark reminder of the fragility of the global economy and the interconnectedness of our world. This crisis is not a natural disaster, it's a man-made catastrophe. The seeds were sown in April 2025 when the United States imposed sweeping tariffs on Chinese imports. These tariffs, some as high as 145%, were intended to pressure China over trade practices. However, the move has backfired spectacularly, disrupting global supply chains and fueling inflation. The tariffs have had a ripple effect throughout the global economy, impacting businesses and consumers alike. The situation worsened in May 2025, when the U.S. revoked the de minimis exemption for Chinese packages under $800. This exemption had allowed small businesses and online retailers to import goods from China without paying tariffs. Its removal has been a major blow to companies like Temu and Shein, which rely heavily on direct-to-consumer sales from China. The end of de minimis has also led to higher prices for consumers who have come to rely on these online platforms for affordable goods. The April 2025 tariffs marked a significant escalation in the ongoing trade war between the US and China. The tariffs, covering a wide range of goods from electronics to clothing, were met with swift retaliation from Beijing. China imposed its own tariffs on US imports, further disrupting global trade and raising prices for consumers worldwide. The trade war has created a climate of uncertainty and instability in the global economy, making it difficult for businesses to plan for the future. The tariffs were imposed with the stated aim of protecting American jobs and intellectual property. The Trump administration argued that China was engaging in unfair trade practices, such as intellectual property theft and forced technology transfer. However, critics of the tariffs argue that they are counterproductive and will ultimately harm American businesses and consumers more than they help. They point to the fact that tariffs are essentially a tax on American consumers who will end up paying higher prices for goods. The tariffs have also disrupted global supply chains, as businesses scramble to find alternative sources for their products. This has led to delays and shortages as well as higher prices for consumers. The tariffs have had a particularly negative impact on small businesses, which often lack the resources to absorb the increased costs or find alternative suppliers. Many small businesses have been forced to raise prices, cut costs, or even close their doors as a result of the tariffs. The trade war has also led to a decline in business investment, as companies are reluctant to invest in new projects amid the uncertainty. This decline in investment is further slowing economic growth and job creation. The trade war is a lose-lose situation for both the US and China, as well as for the global economy as a whole. It is essential that both sides come to the negotiating table and find a way to resolve their differences before the damage becomes irreparable. The de minimis rule, a long-standing provision in U.S. customs law, allowed for the duty-free importation of goods with a value below a certain threshold. For years, this threshold was set at $800, enabling individuals and businesses to import small packages from overseas without incurring additional costs. This exemption was particularly beneficial for e-commerce platforms like Temu and Shein, which built their business models around offering a vast selection of affordable goods directly from Chinese manufacturers to American consumers. However, the revocation of the de minimis exemption in May 2025 delivered a significant blow to these online retailers and their customer base. With the elimination of this provision, even low-value items imported from China became subject to tariffs, immediately impacting the affordability that had been a major selling point for platforms like Temu and Shein. This change has forced these companies to reassess their pricing strategies and explore alternative sourcing options, potentially leading to higher prices for consumers or a reduction in the variety of goods available. The end of de minimis has had far-reaching consequences beyond just these e-commerce giants. Smaller businesses and individual sellers who relied on this exemption to import goods for resale or personal use have also been affected. The increased costs associated with importing goods have made it more challenging for these smaller players to compete in the market, potentially stifling entrepreneurship and innovation. Moreover, consumers who enjoyed access to a wider range of affordable goods due to de minimis now face higher prices and limited options. The removal of the de minimis exemption highlights the interconnectedness of global trade and the unintended consequences of policy decisions. While the move was intended to address concerns related to Chinese trade practices, it has also created challenges for American businesses and consumers alike. The long-term impact of this decision on the e-commerce landscape, consumer behavior, and the overall economy remains to be seen. However, it serves as a stark reminder of the complex relationship between trade, tariffs, and the affordability of goods in a globalized world. The impact of the May 2025 crisis is most visible on the shelves of America's retailers. From sprawling Walmart supercenters to neighborhood Dollar Generals, stores are struggling to keep goods in stock. The aisles that were once overflowing with products now stand bare, a stark testament to the fragility of global supply chains. The familiar sight of out-of-stock signs and empty shelves has become a source of anxiety for consumers accustomed to abundance and convenience. The retail industry, already grappling with the rise of e-commerce and evolving consumer habits, now faces an unprecedented challenge. The tariffs on Chinese imports have disrupted the delicate balance of supply and demand. Retailers who relied heavily on Chinese manufacturers for affordable goods are now facing dwindling inventories and skyrocketing prices. The cost of replenishing their stock has increased dramatically, forcing them to pass on the burden to consumers. Major retailers like Walmart, Target, and Dollar General, once symbols of American consumerism, are now grappling with the harsh realities of a trade war. Their once predictable supply chains have been thrown into disarray, leaving them scrambling to find alternative sources for their products. The pressure to maintain profit margins while keeping prices competitive is immense. Some retailers have resorted to reducing product sizes while keeping prices the same, a tactic known as shrinkflation. The crisis has exposed the vulnerabilities of a globalized economy heavily reliant on a single source for manufacturing. The just-in-time inventory system, once lauded for its efficiency, has proven to be brittle in the face of disruption. Retailers are now faced with the daunting task of diversifying their supply chains, exploring domestic production options, and finding ways to mitigate the impact of rising costs on consumers. The road ahead for the retail industry is fraught with challenges, and the May 2025 crisis has only just begun to reveal its full impact. Section 5. Economic Tremors. A contraction signals trouble. The tremors of the May 2025 crisis are being felt far beyond the aisles of retail stores. The U.S. economy, once considered a beacon of stability, contracted by 0.3% in the first quarter of 2025, a stark indicator of the brewing economic storm. The contraction, the first since the brief recession of 2020, is a direct result of the trade war with China and the disruption it has caused to global supply chains. The uncertainty and instability created by the tariffs have dampened business investment, slowed economic growth, and fueled inflation. The manufacturing sector, heavily reliant on Chinese imports for raw materials and components, has been particularly hard hit. Factories across the country are facing production delays, rising input costs, and dwindling orders. The tariffs have squeezed profit margins, forcing businesses to make difficult decisions about raising prices, cutting costs, or even shutting down operations. The once booming manufacturing sector, a key driver of economic growth, is now facing an uncertain future. The economic slowdown is also having a ripple effect on the job market. With businesses facing uncertainty and declining profits, hiring has slowed and layoffs have increased. The unemployment rate, which had been steadily declining in recent years, has begun to tick upward, a worrying sign of the economic challenges ahead. The rising cost of living, fueled by inflation, is putting a strain on household budgets, leading to decreased consumer spending and further slowing economic growth. The 0.3% contraction in the first quarter of 2025 is a wake-up call, a stark reminder that the global economy is interconnected, and the consequences of trade wars are real. The economic pain being felt by businesses and consumers alike is a direct result of the tariffs and the uncertainty they have created. The road to economic recovery will be long and arduous, requiring a concerted effort to resolve trade disputes, rebuild trust, and restore stability to the global economy. Section 6. Manufacturing's plight dependence breeds vulnerability. The May 2025 crisis has exposed a fundamental vulnerability in the U.S. economy, its heavy reliance on China for manufacturing. For decades, American companies have outsourced production to China, lured by the promise of lower labor costs and efficient supply chains. This dependence on a single source for manufacturing has created a strategic weakness, one that is now being exploited by the trade war. The tariffs on Chinese imports have exposed the fragility of these supply chains and the risks associated with over-reliance on a single country for essential goods. The manufacturing sector, once a pillar of the American economy, has been particularly hard hit by the tariffs. Factories across the country, from steel mills to electronics assembly plants, are facing a perfect storm of challenges: rising input costs, production delays, and dwindling orders. The tariffs have driven up the cost of raw materials and components, squeezing profit margins and forcing businesses to make difficult decisions. The crisis has highlighted the need for greater diversification in U.S. manufacturing. Over-reliance on a single source for production has proven to be a risky strategy, one that has left American businesses vulnerable to geopolitical tensions and trade disputes. The May 2025 crisis is a wake-up call, a stark reminder that a resilient economy requires a diverse and adaptable manufacturing base. The road to recovery for the manufacturing sector will be long and challenging. It will require a concerted effort to rebuild domestic manufacturing capacity, invest in innovation and automation, and develop a more resilient and diversified supply chain. The May 2025 crisis has exposed the vulnerabilities of the current system and underscored the need for a new approach to manufacturing in the 21st century. Section 7. China bites back. Retaliation and disruption. China, not one to back down from a trade war, responded to the U.S. tariffs with swift and calculated retaliation. Beijing imposed its own tariffs on a wide range of American goods, targeting key exports like soybeans, automobiles, and aircraft. The retaliatory tariffs were strategically designed to inflict maximum economic pain on U.S. industries and pressure the Trump administration to reconsider its aggressive trade policies. The tit-for-tat tariff battle has escalated tensions between the world's two largest economies, creating a climate of uncertainty and volatility in global markets. The impact of China's retaliatory tariffs has been felt acutely by American businesses and farmers who rely on the Chinese market for their livelihoods. Soybean farmers, for example, have seen demand for their crops plummet as Chinese buyers turn to alternative suppliers like Brazil and Argentina. The automotive industry has also been hit hard, with exports to China declining sharply. The trade war has disrupted long-standing trade relationships and forced businesses to scramble for new markets. Beyond the immediate economic impact, China's retaliatory tariffs have also exposed the interconnectedness of the global economy and the ripple effects of trade disputes. The tariffs have disrupted global supply chains, leading to higher prices for consumers worldwide. The trade war has also fueled uncertainty and volatility in financial markets, making it more difficult for businesses to plan for the future. The trade war between the U.S. and China is a lose-lose situation for both countries and the global economy as a whole. The tariffs are harming businesses, costing jobs, and driving up prices for consumers. The only way to resolve the trade dispute is through dialogue and negotiation. Both sides need to come to the table and find a way to address their concerns in a constructive and mutually beneficial manner. Section 8. Seeking alternatives, Mexico and Vietnam step in. As the trade war between the U.S. and China rages on, businesses are increasingly looking for alternative sources for their products. Mexico and Vietnam, with their proximity to the U.S. market and lower labor costs, have emerged as prime beneficiaries of this shift in global trade. Both countries have seen a surge in foreign investment and exports as companies seek to diversify their supply chains and reduce their reliance on China. Mexico, with its existing free trade agreement with the U.S., has become an attractive destination for manufacturers looking to relocate production closer to their customers. The country has seen a surge in investment in industries such as automotive, electronics, and apparel. Vietnam, with its young and growing workforce and improving infrastructure, has also emerged as a popular alternative to China. The country has seen a boom in exports of electronics, footwear, and textiles. The shift in global trade is creating both opportunities and challenges for Mexico and Vietnam. On the one hand, the influx of foreign investment and increased exports are boosting economic growth and creating jobs. On the other hand, both countries are facing pressure to improve their infrastructure, strengthen their legal systems, and address concerns about labor conditions. The rise of Mexico and Vietnam as manufacturing hubs is a testament to the resilience and adaptability of the global economy. As the trade war between the U.S. and China continues, businesses are finding new ways to adapt and thrive. The diversification of global supply chains is likely to continue, reshaping the landscape of global trade and creating new opportunities for countries like Mexico and Vietnam. Section 9. The Global Web, Interconnectedness and its Consequences. The May 2025 crisis serves as a stark reminder of the interconnected nature of our world. In today's globalized economy, events in one corner of the globe can have far-reaching consequences, rippling across borders and impacting businesses and consumers alike. The trade war between the US and China, two economic superpowers, has disrupted global supply chains, fueled inflation, and slowed economic growth worldwide. The crisis has exposed the vulnerabilities of a highly interconnected global economy, where disruptions in one part of the system can quickly cascade throughout the entire network. The crisis has also highlighted the importance of diversification and resilience in a globalized world. Over-reliance on a single source for goods or a single market for exports can leave businesses and countries vulnerable to shocks and disruptions. The May 2025 crisis is a wake-up call, urging businesses and policymakers to prioritize diversification, build more resilient supply chains, and reduce their dependence on any single country or region. As consumers, we are not immune to the impacts of these global events. The empty shelves, rising prices, and economic uncertainty we are experiencing are a direct result of the interconnectedness of our world. The crisis reminds us that we are all part of a global community, and our actions have consequences that extend far beyond our borders. It is essential that we stay informed about global events, understand the interconnected nature of our world, and support policies that promote cooperation, stability, and sustainable economic growth. The May 2025 crisis is a defining moment for the global economy. It is a time for reflection, for reassessing our priorities, and for working together to build a more resilient, sustainable, and equitable future for all. The challenges we face are complex and interconnected, but by working together, we can navigate these turbulent times and emerge stronger on the other side.
If you made it this far to the end of this video, thank you for all your support. Please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And please consider donating. I really could use donations. Thanks for watching.